I was having a coaching conversation with a director of an organization the other day, and she said to me, Colin, I feel like I'm getting dumber in my old age. And as we started to explore it, we discovered that she was actually breaking a few of the brain rules that help you to function best in your organization or in your business. So what I want to share with you right now are 3 fundamental brain rules that you must be aware of to function at your highest performance. Speak to you soon. Hi, Colin Boyd here, founder of the Productivity Academy, and today's conversation we're talking about the 3 brain rules. Now, in the Productivity Academy, I talk about how you use your brain most effectively. So what I want to share with you right now, these 3 brain rules are part of what makes up someone's mindset around being effective and being productive. So the director that I was having this conversation with, now context-wise, she has a lot of responsibility. She gets paid a lot of money, which says to me that, she's got a lot of responsibility and she's got a lot on her plate. And she's a very capable, very competent woman. And she says to me, Colin, I feel like I'm getting dumber in my old age. And so we started to discuss this idea, and what we realized was that she was breaking a lot of the brain rules that I'm going to share with you. So the first brain rule that you must be aware of to work functionally and effectively with your brain, first of all, is that you need to forget remembering. Now I'm going to say that again just so you're aware. It's called forget remembering. In other words, you need to be writing everything down. Your brain was not designed to be a filing cabinet. It was actually designed to be a calculator. So I guess what that means is that instead of trying to remember every single thing in your schedule or in your calendar or what you have on, what you have to do, you've got to make sure you're writing stuff down. This particular woman, my client, she had 3 young kids. She's got a lot of responsibility, and she was at a point where her brain was just overloaded. She was getting very foggy. She thought it was that she was getting old, but it was actually got nothing to do with how old she was. It was actually to do with the complexity of her life, and she was trying to, jam it all in and hold it all in her brain. Your brain's designed to be a calculator, not a filing cabinet. So the first idea is you need to forget remembering. In other words, write every single thing down. The second brain rule is understanding that you can only process one complex task at a time. How many? 1. Now what I mean by that is your brain is designed to process one complex idea or one complex thought at one moment. So for example, if you're watching a presentation and the person has got a slide that has a lot of words and you start reading the slide, what tends to happen? You stop listening to the person. In other words, you're either listening or you're reading, because listening or reading is a complex task. If you're writing an email, that's a complex task. If you're having a conversation with someone, that's a complex task. So in other words, you can only do one complex task at a time. This whole idea of multitasking, which has been talked about a whole lot, but I guess the fresh take on it is realizing that your brain was designed to process one complex task at a time. When you try to process too many complex tasks, your brain actually starts to task switch, and you actually don't get in a state of flow. There was some research done around it, and basically what they found was that if you're task switching regularly for a period of 2 to 3 hours, your brain gets extremely tired to the point of they found that the focused attention was actually as high as someone smoking marijuana. So basically you're on drugs. And I don't advocate drugs, but what I do advocate is focusing on one complex task at a time. So get off the drugs, stop smoking the weed, and focus on one complex task at a time, and that will help you to get focus, momentum, and flow. So that's the second one, is one complex task at a time. Now the third key rule around the brain, working with your brain, is understanding that your brain only has limited juice. What I mean by that, there's a part of your brain called the prefrontal cortex, and that part of your brain is, I guess, the processing capacity part. It's the part that does the cognitive, linear, analytical thinking. Now that part of the brain only has a limited amount of juice. So the research shows that you can literally use up your prefrontal cortex energy in around 20 minutes. If you're doing some really intense thinking or conversation, you can actually exhaust your thinking energy in around 20 minutes. It's not very long, right? So if you're working in really in-depth ideas for really long periods of time, you're going to be exhausted. And that's why they talk about 3 o'clock-itis and things like that. But really what they're saying is your prefrontal cortex is exhausted. You haven't taken a break. So there's 3 big rules. So let's go over them. We're going to go over the 3 big rules and make sure you're not breaking them. Let's go over these 3 key rules, brain rules, to make sure you're working with them, not against them. The first rule is forget remembering. In other words, write everything down. Stop using your brain as a filing cabinet, use it as a calculator. The second key rule is one complex task at a time. So stop multitasking, focus on one complex task at a time. And the third rule is limited juice. In other words, only work for limited periods of time, like 50 minutes or an hour or 2 hours, and have a break, because your brain's only got limited juice. So they're the 3 brain rules to make you more effective. So if this has been valuable, please like it, share it, write a comment below. I trust this has been helpful. Make sure you're not breaking these 3 brain rules that I talk about from the Productivity Academy, and I trust it's been valuable. We'll speak to you soon. Bye. I was coaching a director the other day, and we're having a coaching, it's good, obviously a coaching conversation. And the third rule is, so let's go over these. That was 2. Let's go over these 3.